So have you found that you've gotten a lot of good results by using your escalation program? This by calling and contacting your senators. Do they remember you, your representatives? Do they remember? Are they engaging with you in any kind of way? Are they responding, or is it just a
Well,
formal letter? Or
I mean, me personally
Mhm.
have, being a sort of a political junkie, not in the sense of working for a political party, but in the sense of following policy issues and taking action. Yes, I have ways to get in touch with them, although I have to say Mfume is particularly well protected. But I did get to talk in person with also Brooks, and she's promised a meeting. This is
Mhm.
for Maryland Peace Action, and I've known Chris Ben Hall in a long, long time. I don't, but I do think Chris is one that needs calls of thanks so that he'll be encouraged to continue doing the kinds of things he's been willing to do that almost no other senator has been willing to do.
So why do
He's
you
been
why do you why
willing.
do you think why do you think Mfume is so protected? Because I mean I know him personally, so I don't know him to be protected. I just know that he just doesn't meet with everybody.
Well, I've primarily been contacting him in the last couple of years about the Israel-Palestine issue, and he is pretty clearly on the Israel side.
But
Uh,
I'm gonna just
every
I'll just
every single thing you say about it has to start with October 7th, which
but
I just disagree with that.
no, but I'm gonna just tell you a little bit about Mr. Mfume.
Hmm.
Anything he says, it's a personal thing. It's with him, it's personal. It's not what's the best way I can say? People think he's machine, but he is not. And I know that sounds like it
Hmm.
isn't, but I'm telling you on a personal level, if that's what he believes, his decisions are all him. And for good or bad, that's what it is. And so he isn't going to argue with anybody because he's at a point in his life where he just ain't going to argue with anybody. And so there's certain can't meetings he may or may not take,
Yeah.
but
So I
certain
haven't had success with that.
yeah, but I mean I'm just telling you he's not necessarily protected because he just doesn't take
I see.
certain meetings. I'm just
Right.
telling you he's not protected
Hmm.
because I know him personally, and I'm just telling you he's not protected. He just doesn't take certain meetings if he doesn't want to because he doesn't have to. Um,
Um,
and
but
and
I think that the issue here isn't whether one particular person will have an impact. And what I'm saying to your listeners is not that if they call, they'll have a result. That's not what
Mhm,
I'm saying.
mhm,
I'm
sure,
saying I'm saying if tens of thousands of people call,
right,
if
right.
hundreds of thousands of people call,
Hmm.
or right, that'll be part of the result. It still may be necessary to also have the constitutional crisis of the courts versus the executive. It still may be necessary to go further to things like strikes and boycotts.
Hmm.
But this is the stage we're in now. And of course, people go out in the street. We're going to be having a big action here in Baltimore on Thursday. It's May Day,
Hmm.
and we'll
Now,
have 8 or 9 marches. I'll be participating in the labor march, but there's a Palestine march, a teachers march, um, and
who's
5 or 6
organizing it?
others.
Do you know?
What?
Do you know who's organizing it?
I know that the Baltimore Rapid Response Network has arisen to sort of unify uh, Baltimoreans to take action.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
And you do know that Black America is already in a boycott.
no.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I always say that a lot of times people don't know what's going on.
Hmm.
Uh But Black America has been boycotting Target and Walmart since
Hmm.
Trump announced that they were getting rid of the DEI program,
Hmm.
and they got up first. And so Black America in general and mass have not been frequenting those areas, and Target alone has lost, I believe, $30 billion in this last quarter.
Well, in the case of Walmart, I beat Black America by about 30 years because I just have refused to shop there for a
It, it
long,
really
long time.
It really is a garbage pail. It is a garbage pail. I don't really go there. The last time I went there of any frequency was when my mom was living. And that's because she liked one thing out of there in her medicine.
Mhm.
And now since she's passed, it's in 2018, I don't think I've been in there more than 3 or 4 times.
So
Um,
it's very interesting, though. This tariff war with China is
mm,
really going to affect their business model because
they've
what
been,
they're doing is selling you the goods
mhm,
that China produces, not the key goods like so not the magnets that are needed for electronics and weapons and not the rare earth metals that are needed for batteries,
mhm,
but the cheap clothing, the cheap shoes
mhm,
and stuff like that. That's, Walmart's and Target's whole business model. And if
mhm.
somebody puts 145% tariff on it, I mean, he won't actually do that, but um,
Well, I heard they've been
he
up
has
Capitol Hill
entered the
quite a few
wrestling
times.
arena with people who are stronger and quicker and smarter than he is.
Well, he's not smart. He's got handlers. He's an actor. He is their best
Yes.
actor and personality, and he's engaged in The Apprentice at number million, whatever.
Hmm.
And so they've been up. Walmart and Target has been up to Capitol Hill quite a few times in the last month, telling
Hmm.
him, and he hasn't been listening, by the way,
Right.
because the thing about it is because he's upset because President Xi, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken,
Yeah.
has not called, and he's been lying on camera saying that he has called because
Right.
his ego can't take the fact that he hasn't called.
But you shouldn't say he's not smart. Now, in my opinion, he is not the kind of smart that we recognize. I mean, you're a strategist. Well, maybe he's not strategically smart. You know, I used to
He's
be when I
con
was in
he's
school,
con man.
I
He's
was
a
a great student. I can't imagine that he did anything but buy his degree at the University of Pennsylvania. But his his acting ability
Mhm.
is off the charts and it's a form of intelligence. It's
Well,
just
no,
not
he's a habitual liar. So I think there's a difference
he's a
between.
genius at it though.
Well, no, but no, he's not a genius.
Yes, he
He's
is.
no, you're giving him far too much credit. There are people who are just like him who lie all the time. No, I think people mistake. I've been around
Yeah, but
con
they
people.
didn't get 73 million votes.
No, but guess what? Just because, okay, I'm gonna say this because I had to explain to you something.
Yeah.
White America has had a propensity towards white supremacy since the inception of America. It is not hard to convince a sector of white America to embrace something that they've been embracing since 400 years ago.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
so the thing is, he didn't do anything that was unique or smart or clever or anything. He's just a habitual liar who has been given a script, and he's doing what any good con man over the years could have gotten any other con man to have done it.
No.
I'm wait a sec, let me finish what I'm saying. They could have gotten any other con man. He just happened to be that con man at that time.
I mean, they
But
got George Bush the dumber.
no, but again, George Bush Okay, they're just two different times and two different situations for
Hmm.
two different two different things. First
Well,
thing, they never chose Trump. Trump chose himself
that's right.
based on the timing. But
Mhm.
again, he has created a very big problem for them because now they don't know how to get him off the stage.
Yes.
And so
Well, you say they're not scared of him, but I say they are. Anyway,
I mean, the people who are representatives, no, I don't think they are. I mean, not from where I sit. They're not scared. They're saying that to you to manipulate you.
do you do you want to go into the cryptocurrency piece?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do.
Okay.
I definitely do. But before I go into that, I did
Mhm.
want to ask you a couple questions before I wanted to go into that. Because
Okay.
you did say something that because I want to be a little bit fair and balanced. In wait a sec. Well, I hit the wrong button. Um, uh, because I noticed you talk a lot, and this is a lot in this progressive movement.
Mm.
A lot of times there's a highlight on foreign efforts in addressing movements, but a lot of times they don't talk about what's necessarily going on at home. And then you also talked about like that Chris Van Hollen needed, I think you said he needed encouragement. And I found that kind of interesting. Um, you said that let me see where you said it. You said gratitude is a political tool. When you thank someone for their courage, you build up capital. In your opinion, I think that's maybe the loose statement. Um, but yet here in Maryland, and even Harford County, Baltimore County, and Prince George's County, these areas have F's for ozone smog and pollutants, where it sickens a lot of the Black community. And this has been actually stated by the American Lung Association.
Hmm.
Areas like Curtis Bay have a legacy of coal dust, chemical plants, and methane leaks,
Hmm.
while upstream decision makers
And
celebrate,
the incinerator.
yeah, the incinerator. And so we continue to, we demand due process, and I understand why we demand due process, because clearly that's an issue. um but it seems like it's always an issue for another group, another culture, El Salvador, Gaza. But when it comes to like Black Marylanders or Black Americans in general, like Sewage Row here in Maryland or even in Lowndes County, I mean, Kwame Ture was talking about Lowndes County 60, 70 years ago.
Hmm.
Flint, Michigan, it always seems to be like, you know, and even Maryland this spring, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, the General Assembly created a reparations commission to study the benefits for descendants of enslaved Marylanders, but the same legislator has yet to fully fund these communities. So my question to you is, one, about why do you think that Chris Van Hollen, one, needs this encouragement? I thought that was a little bit interesting because I noticed you said that before. And then,
Well,
and
he's going against APAC and a very, very effective political machine run by Israel,
mhm,
promoting the Zionist line,
mhm.
which is that everything is the Palestinians' fault. Uh, that history started yesterday. Yesterday keeps changing, but history always started yesterday. And I mean, I just think that I've been watching what I think is an extraordinary uh, situation of uh, the United States providing the weapons to
Mhm,
bomb people in their apartment buildings
yeah.
indiscriminately. Um, so I felt that was so, they say there's 50,000 dead and others uncounted under the rubble. But since they've destroyed uh, there were 29 hospitals in Gaza. They've destroyed pretty much all of them now, and it seems to me only reasonable to assume that all the dialysis patients and the cancer patients and the pulmonary disease patients are dead or dying.
Sure.
So I would say they've killed probably way over 100,000 people, and they're doing it with they're
Tax
making me pay
dollars.
for this. So I have a special feeling about that. There's equally bad stuff on an even bigger scale going on in Sudan, but the US isn't as directly involved in that.
Well, because it's
But
black. They don't care
so
about
what
black
I
bodies.
so what I guess I'm saying is um, Chris Van Hollen is one of the very, very few to not only say something different from both major political parties, but to be a leader in that.
Why do you think he gets to say it? Because I got my theory behind it.
Say again.
Why do you think he gets to say it versus nobody else?
He gets to say it.
Sure, because he gets to say it.
Well, he's a U.S. senator, but my impression is others aren't willing to say it.
Mm-mm.
Well,
He gets to say it because he isn't really, he's not nowhere where anybody's going to really challenge him. I mean, he's in Maryland. The seat,
uh-huh.
the way that he got his seat, he was challenging a black woman who was undermined because of something that was infighting. And so he's not going to be challenged for his seat.
Are you talking about Donna Edwards?
Yeah, yeah. It
Mhm.
was some infighting. And because she was going to get the seat, but then they undermined her and did a little twist. And I'm telling you what I know, not what I'm guessing at. And so that's how he got the seat, because it wasn't any particular reason that he should have gotten the seat, because really it wasn't like he was loved. And and so now he's gotten this seat. So he's in a state that's not necessarily a state where he would be highly contended against. It's not a purple state per
That's true.
se.
He has a very safe seat.
He has a safe seat, so he's
Mhm.
not going to be. I mean, APAC can come here, but who is he going to be? Who's he going to be contested by? He's somebody who can do it without really. It's not really courageous. That's why I say you got to really look at it. Got to really look at it. He's not courageous. You know what real courage is? You know, Jasmine Crockett is real courageous.
Yes.
She's getting death threats. Van Hollen's not courageous. He's a white man. And I'm being real. You know, she's getting death threats. She's going up against everything in Texas. In Texas. I mean, what's real courageous is being in like areas of like Georgia or like in Tennessee.
Well, Cori Bush was courageous, and she
Yeah,
did
she
get beat.
was.
And
She
she got
was, but
beat
she
by
was,
APAC.
but you know what? She was also not smart. nor was Jamal. You had to have infrastructure. They had the right fight, but the wrong strategy. You can't fight something you don't have infrastructure to fight. They couldn't fight it. They couldn't fight it to win, because that's the one thing about the progressive movement. When you guys don't have enough infrastructure to win against these machines, because regardless of whether we like it or not, the game is the game. It's like football. The field is the field, the players, the rules, whether they're juiced or not, it's just the game. And so you got to find a way to win within the game, whether you like the rules or not. And that's politics too. We can sit and complain all day about them, but you got to find a way to win. And instead of that, progressives focus about what they want to change. You can't focus. You got to first win.
Well, Jamal, there was a huge redistricting that impacted him.
Absolutely.
So I don't know that he had much of a chance to win, actually.
He did, but he did have a chance. But he completely, and I'm telling you because I'm originally from New York. He had a
Mhm.
chance of winning. He completely destroyed his chances of winning by going out there, and people who voted for him before turned against him because he got out there and started talking crazy and started doing stuff that just undermined himself. He just, and again, this is where cooler heads need to be prevailing, where advice strategists, that's why I say I'm not a progressive. People always thought I was a progressive because I was in your circles, but I've always been just a strategist who understands this and that. You got to be a cool head in this game, otherwise it'll eat you up. It'll eat you up and spit you out. And that's the reason why the machine didn't want me, because they saw me coming. They're like, this girl gonna come in here, not only write the policy, she gonna undermine and throw off the table and then smile in your face. That's why they didn't want me in there. You see what I'm saying? And so the thing, because I'm not somebody that's like, not so much Corey, but Jamal, he a little bit of a hothead. He's smart though. He's
Uh-huh.
learning now. Now, now he's learning. Now, I bet you he can run again now after learning some lessons and run again, because again, their fight was correct. Their fight was 100% correct, because some of the stuff that he was doing in that community was so positive. He had kids that were who never had a mentor who was looking up to him, which was why what he was doing was so stupid. He really let his community down. The persons representing that area don't give a shit, you know? And
Right.
so that was why it was so important for him to keep, you know, and when, okay, what's that old adage, when everything is going awry above you, got to keep your head and wits above you, or something like that.
Right.
He just couldn't keep his cool.
Well, let me just say, with respect to my idea. So obviously, uh, Chris Van Hollen is saying things about foreign policy that I agree with,
Hmm.
that I think are pretty important.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's any small matter
Hmm.
to go around and kill 100,000 or more Palestinians, babies,
Hmm.
tens and tens of thousands of babies. Now that they don't have an apartment building, they're bombing tents.
Right.
Um, and I believe it's genocide. Then they have an intent to move the people out.
Hmm.
They've only lived there for 4,000 years or something.
Right.
Um, so, but I do think that in terms of if he has ambitions of rising in the Senate,
Hmm.
uh, that may be that he's putting something on the line. I don't know. I don't know what his ambitions are.
Right.
Uh, so anyway, I am happy that there was one senator that was willing to deal with that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I also agree with what he has done uh, about the lack of due process in deporting people to El Salvador, and that will affect um potentially thousands and thousands of people of color who can be swept up. They might be U.S. citizens. They might not be undocumented. And I don't believe the people doing this anti-immigrant uh, and this deportation campaign care at all about whether the
Of course not.
particular person that they're deporting has anything to do with anything negative. Whether, they used, talk about racist. If you had a Michael Jordan tattoo, they had an 8 point scale. And if
Mm.
you got 8 points, you were picked up and sent to El Salvador.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A certain Michael Jordan tattoo gave you four of the 8 points. And then a Chicago Bulls hat gave you more points.
I'm sure. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised by any of it. You know, they've been doing that since the Bloods and Crips existed. You know, they've done that to Black people uh, uh,
Right.
for years and still do. You know, so I'm not surprised by any of this. I mean, this is an old playbook, the Lee Atwater playbook. I think
Yeah,
isn't
but
that his name?
it is being done potentially. It could be done at a larger scale unless somebody stops him. So
Yeah, I mean,
again,
it
I think
may.
that it's good for someone to do what Chris did in going down there and bringing attention to it. And obviously, a whole lot more has to be done. He didn't solve it.
No, I mean what he did was brought attention to it,
Yeah.
and that's I'm not belittling what he's doing. I'm
Mm.
just bringing attention to that we need to also keep things in perspective, and
Hmm.
not necessarily. This is where if we start saying people have too much courage, this is where Black people get a little bit mad, and I'm just go with me when we start saying people like Chris Van Holler are courageous, and then Black people are like, yeah, right, he's courageous, and then we know what's happening. We see the manipulation, and then we see Sister Jasmine getting all these death threats while he's not. Then we get mad, and then you guys wonder later why we not found the boat. Then you're gonna not understand. That's the reason why I'm explaining to you the difference. And so the thing is we have to understand all these things that are added, even this whole Gaza thing. You know, I understand why the fight exists. You know, I understand genocide because I've lived in one my entire life. Even though that one's a foreign one, there's a one that's domestic. And I think that's the problem sometimes that, you know, Black Americans always have to reckon themselves with, is that we're here. We're always here. And sometimes we just feel like everybody else is just trying to run the next little hot thing as opposed to understanding what's hot here. And you know, we just really want people to understand sometimes it's just not everything isn't what everything is. And so even in this last election, the way the election went, the way the Arabic community up in Michigan voted,
Hmm.
they voted for Trump. And then now they're like, Black people help us. I mean, think about that.
I
Think
mean,
about
did they actually vote for Trump or did they not vote?
no, there's an article. No, there's an article out where the majority of that population voted for Trump.
Mm.
And so and now even those Venezuelans who've been deported, they were out there, the ones that could, that voted for Trump. And now they're talking about, you know, you can't ask a Black community, because we've been burned by just about every culture in this community, in this American community. And the rubber's hitting the road now in 2025. We're not as, and I'm saying this as a general collective, just
Hmm.
saying general. Obviously, I can't speak for every Black person, but I'm
Right.
just telling you what I've been hearing. Black people are fed up with just about every culture in America, just about every culture. We are tired of taking SHIT from every one of you guys because you know, you always seem to come back to us after y'all then F stuff up. And we just are just done. We are just so like really done
Well,
with every bit of it. And so now that we're in Trump number 2, it's just sort of like we see the trauma bonding, we see the craziness, we see this and blah 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 and so on and so forth. But at the same point, we see the same patterns over and over. And it's just sort of like, okay, they just go and do the same shit over and over again. And so it's like at some point we don't want, it's sort of like what I said yesterday to somebody, I won't mention their name, but they were saying we're gonna burn it all down. I was like, okay, so you're gonna do what the right's doing. You're gonna burn, the right burns it down for control, the left burns it down for their ideals. But same thing, they don't invite Black people to the table or even in the room. They just do the same shit, the same stuff over and over again. You know,
Well, I'm certainly not for burning anything down, but what I will say is that I think um, uh, Black people here in the U.S. are losing out in this whole 50-year scenario that we talked about in the beginning since Reagan,
we know.
where the jobs go overseas, the better jobs go overseas to become lousy jobs overseas,
Yep.
maybe, or uh, maybe if you were uh, a person in China living on the land, making a subsistence amount, maybe that factory job is better for you. I don't know.
Right.
But at any rate, the jobs were taken away from here, and I believe that Black people and white people and Hispanic people and everyone here in this country lost out.
Yep.
And I think that uh, if we could get a unified labor movement and working class grassroots uprising that that scares one or both parties into abandoning their big donors and doing what's necessary to restore decent jobs and a decent standard of living, I think we'd all be better off.
Yeah, but the problem with that, Charlie, and then we're gonna go into the
I know it
crypto.
ain't happening
No, well,
yet.
well, that's
There, there
part.
are, there
That's part
definitely
of it.
are some. There's some seeds growing in the work in the labor movement. There's organizing around Amazon, organizing around Starbucks. There's some things going that give hope, but it's certainly not. They're not winning at this point.
Well, part of the problem is
Mhm.
again, is that it's well, one, majority of labor is not in unions. That's
Oh,
one
right.
part of it. And then the second part is that again, it seems like
Hmm.
I always say, it's more than just a class issue. It's and that's all I'm gonna say
Hmm.
without getting too bogged in the weeds.
So
And
you're,
so
you're
so that's what ends up always being the issue, and then nobody wants to address it. But it's always the elephant in the room, and until people are willing to address multiple issues at the same time, it just go be the same self-fulfilling prophecy. But I tell you, I believe at some point, maybe not in our lifetime, but maybe some point, um, it will be, addressed. And that's just my hope and my prayer, um, that we will get to that. But let's
the
move.
current president has uh, damaged the National Labor Relations Board very
Oh,
much,
absolutely.
which is starting to make some, and now there's a big move to cripple the Federal Trade Commission, which has been very successfully fighting monopoly, which takes money out of your pocket, everyone's pocket.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was the whole thing, was to enrich those corporations,
Right.
deregulate at a high clip. And as well as I know, Charlie, that when they tear things away from government, no, it don't matter who gets back into power, they never build it up as fast as it's torn down. And
It's
not
being
because
torn
they
down really
can't,
fast.
and not because they can't, because
Mhm.
they just are not motivated, which is why if we are to elect new people, we need to really start electing new people. We've got to get out of this idea of voting based on sign slates. We need to look who's on that
Right,
ballot and take
right.
enough damn time to look up
Absolutely.
who is on the ballot. Like,
Right.
and stop thinking that, oh, well, such and so, I've known them since I was a child, and thinking that's just a good reason to vote for them.
But
You
with
just got to get better.
gerrymandering, how many congressional districts out of 435 are actually competitive between the parties? The answer is about 40 in the whole country. So the
Mine's not.
trouble is the action occurs at the primary, and the turnout for the primaries is in the 20, 30%. So
Correct.
the electorate isn't even really participating in
You're
who
right.
gets Congress.
Well, and before I go to the next section, like my district got redistricted into Andy Harris. Part of the reason why my district wasn't originally in the Andy Harris was because we originally fought to be out of that district because clearly our voting rights were being abridged. Well,
Yeah.
the General Assembly clearly decided that we needed to be back there, even though we won a case not even 20 years ago to not be in this district. So
Mhm.
that's a lawsuit. It's just I don't get why they just think that we need to accept this sh to t.
Right.
And the way that they created this district, oh well, it's smooth. It's still violating our voting rights because of just it's not. And I know that even with the pared down voting rights act from the Supreme Court, is still violating it. But again, that's a problem because Congress never fought to actually not have an act. It should have been a law. You know, it shouldn't even have been something that was attacked. But let's move on to the
Right.
crypto corruption and the Trump grip. So in March of 2025, President Trump signed an executive order to create a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve, directly funneling taxpayer dollars into unbacked digital coins seized by law enforcement. Charlie warns this reserve is the ultimate corruption of public resources. Crypto has no intrinsic value, as it doesn't. It can be laundered and lets dark money donors evade campaign finance limits. I mean, it really literally does. Charlie urges the listeners to call their representatives, tell them to defund any crypto reserve plan and restore congressional authority over federal asset seizures. And I absolutely agree 100% with you. So we'll start
Right.
just with that. Could you walk us through how a strategic Bitcoin reserve would actually work and why it's a bad idea,
It
Charlie?
would work to to support the value of Bitcoin, which we have no business doing. We don't support the value of other products in general. The United States and other governments have grain reserves.
Mm,
They have petroleum reserves.
hmm
They have medical medicine reserves.
hmm
Internationally, people are building seed reserves. Why? Because species are going extinct,
mm,
right? So that
right.
if a species goes extinct, then you can't have that combination of DNA anymore. But if
hmm
you've taken some of that DNA and put it in or seeds from a plant and put it in a reserve, then you still have some of it, even if the species out in nature is extinct.
hmm
Okay. So what it is, things that are really important and of value, you have a reserve of them. So if there's a disruption in the supply, you can have it. Why is crypto of any value? It isn't of any value.
Right,
Anyone can make a crypto
right.
if you have sufficient programming skills. And then crypto, at least in the Bitcoin manifestation, is a heavy polluter because it
Mm,
requires uh, dozens or hundreds of computers all to solve the same cryptographic problem to mint a new Bitcoin or
mm,
part of a Bitcoin.
hmm
Um, and these are all running on petroleum and spewing carbon into the air,
Wow.
exacerbating our other problems. Um, and the so so let's get into just for a second the
hmm
basic idea of money.
Sure.
Money used to be something of value that was stamped with Caesar's face or the Emperor of China's face or something like
Sure.
that,
hmm
right? And in the 19th century in this country,
Hmm.
we had the gold standard and into the 20th century.
Yes.
And you couldn't issue money unless you had sufficient gold to back it.
Correct.
And this created a huge problem. And in the late 19th century, there were horrible recessions and depressions. We
Hmm.
don't talk about them much anymore because our memory, people don't know enough about that era and don't study history.
Hmm.
But it was a real problem, and farmers were very angry, and they created a populist movement, and they demanded other kinds of currency. They demanded a currency, for example, that would be backed by grain reserves because they were
Wow.
growing grain and they thought grain was valuable. Gold is valuable in a way, but you
Hmm.
would get into a position where the farmers needed to borrow money to get their crops into the ground or out of the ground or do something with their fields.
Hmm.
And they would go to their bank in St. Joseph, Missouri, and the bank would say, "We're out of money. We don't have enough. We're out of money." And so they would say, "You got to go to St. Louis." So they'd go to St. Louis, which was a Federal Reserve bank. Oh, well,
Hmm.
not in those days. They'd go to St. Louis and they'd say, "We're out of money. The only place we can get money is from JP Morgan."
Hmm.
Okay. And there were times when JP Morgan ran out of sufficient gold. And then what had to happen? The gold had to be gotten from England, and it took 6 weeks to come over on the boat, and they couldn't lend money. Well, by that time, you're not, nature doesn't pause while we're waiting for the damn boat to come over for the gold. The point being that any one commodity is not sufficient to be the money
Hmm.
of a modern diverse economy that has technologies and uh, global reach, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that and there are a lot of conservative people who harp about this, and interestingly enough, and they want gold back, but some of the same
They
ones
talk
want
all the time
cryptocurrency.
about it. They
How
talk
could
all
you
the time.
possibly think that money should be gold and then think that cryptocurrency is okay? When there could be an infinite number of cryptocurrencies and you could create an infinite amount of it. In the
Correct.
case of Bitcoin, they've limited the amount of Bitcoins,
Right.
which is also a problem because if you want to run an economy, you have to control the money supply, which
Right.
means sometimes it has to go up and sometimes it has to go down.
Right. Right.
And you have to be able to do that. Well, if you've decided that only Bitcoins can only be so many, then it's no good for running an economy.
Right.
So what's it good for? It's good for laundering money, avoiding taxes, etc. Now, at the same time as he's saying they're going to take your tax dollars and they're
Hmm.
not going to spend them on hiring Social Security employees to process your application, which is appropriated by Congress, and they're not going to spend them on the National Labor Relations Board and the Consumer Financial Protection Board and all the programs that Congress has mandated. They're
Hmm.
going to buy Bitcoin with them. You know, he has started his own cryptocurrency,
Meme coin.
and he's got a couple of them. He's got more than one, and Melania's got one,
Yeah, I heard.
and they have various schemes built into them so that they're not pure crypto,
Hmm.
that they have some relation to US dollars that um, that enables Trump
Sure.
to skim and own shares. Some big rich Chinese guy just bought enough of Trump's original crypto coin
Hmm.
to put him over some limit that was set up in the founding of it, where he immediately got tens of millions of dollars.
Hmm.
So, and of course, the Supreme Court has exacerbated this by passing their immunity law,
Correct.
that
Which is
immunity
crazy.
ruling back in June of 24,
Yeah.
which is the worst ruling since Dred Scott, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
I spent 10 years fighting Citizens United ruling of 2010,
Hmm.
which allowed corporations to spend unlimited money to
Hmm.
influence campaigns. And I thought that was the worst recent um, Supreme Court decision. But this immunity one is worse. So now Trump
Yeah,
can,
it's worse.
it's a crime for him to sell access to himself.
And he
To
is.
say,
He's
if you
selling it.
buy my meme coins, you can come to the White House and have dinner with
Do
me.
you see that? Do you see that AI version of him? Oh my God, it's awful.
Yeah. So the point is, this is a crime. This is selling influence.
It's a
But
monument clause,
yeah,
but it doesn't
and it
apply to
should be
him.
fought, just as you said, it should be fought in court, but it's going to hide behind the immunity thing, and he's probably going to win. So, I mean, this is just another example. There are so many examples, so much of what Elon Musk is doing,
Hmm.
going into these databases and getting not only your information and my information, but information on his competitors. Like they're in the federal treasury database
Hmm.
that has everyone that receives a federal check. Well, all of Musk's competitors are receiving federal checks.
Hmm.
Now he's got all their information.
Hmm.
And meanwhile, he's competing for contracts against them. So,
And again, I think the people should be fighting that as a legal action, and we should be deporting Elon Musk based on that as well, because he should not.
well, he overstayed his
Yeah,
student visa here.
yeah.
He's
And
a
I know a lot
criminal.
of, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh my God, Sarahia Ben, you must be crazy thinking that." But I'm not. Crimes against America don't have a statute. It's not like they're going to be in power forever. I'm saying that 1 year, 2 year down the line, this is something that should be a move, because at the end of the day, he cannot just think he's going to run rampant and not think that, he should be. We put it this way. This was the statement that I made in
Mhm.
one of my last podcasts. I said that we need to hunt our enemies, foreign and domestic, like Germany did. Germany, when they got rid of the Holocaust, they've sought after their enemies until they were 90, 94.
You're talking about the former Nazis
Yes, yes. And
were prosecuted.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The reason why, think about what America has done. The reason why we still have white supremacy as a major shining, glowing issue in America is because right after the Civil War, they put them back into power. They became representatives again. They got their land back. They even got reparations for it. The Black people didn't get reparations. The plantation owners and masters did. And so they were able to go from Reconstruction after 11 years right into Jim Crow. And so if we keep in America rewarding
Mhm.
bad behavior instead of prosecuting the media, the donors, and everybody that's complicit in this, we will continue to keep revisiting this fascist, white supremacist type of thing. So when this is over, are we going to go after all those who are attached to this? Are
That's a very good
Americans,
point, Sarahia. And
you know,
um, Musk is not the only son of South African apartheid
Peter Thiel,
that's played. Peter Thiel is J.D. Vance's benefactor,
donor.
patron.
There you go. And that was
Yeah.
what I was going to say. How has these dark money actors using crypto to influence elections today? And in general, the money that's been flowing around this
Mhm.
whole, because this election was juice. I mean, regardless of what you think of VP Harris or any of the things that were done in the Democratic side, let's just call it what it was. This election was definitely juiced. And I'm not one of those people that believe in conspiracy theories, but when you take a person who goes around pretending that they're going to give out $1 million for this and then say, "Oh, I'm not giving them $1 million to vote." Come on.
Well, that was the Wisconsin. Are you talking about the Wisconsin thing?
I'm not only talking about Wisconsin, I'm talking about what happened in Pennsylvania. They did the same exact thing in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
They gave people $1 million checks to vote. And they didn't publicize it because the news was so busy, complicit, by the way, was so busy talking about what VP Harris wasn't doing and what this wasn't doing and what she wasn't answering, and they weren't busy talking about what was really happening. Now I knew what was happening because independent media was reporting it, but Elon Musk did an encampment in Pennsylvania, and he literally was giving out $1 million checks. He went to court for it and lied in court saying, oh, we already knew these were influencers that we paid. But that wasn't true. He was paying people to vote.
Well,
And
he's repeated that since then. But anyway, these
right,
guys, um, with from the South African heritage, are way disproportionately influential now
yes.
in the current government, and bringing
It-
back the uh,
Apartheid.
bringing back a a racist tinge and consolidating a certain portion of the Republican base based on these racist ideas.
And that's why they have to be dealt with. And if they're not dealt with in a proper and strong way,
Mm-hmm.
it won't stop.
Well,
And that's the thing about it. And people need to be of heart. You can't stop something, and and if you're not willing to have the heart to really stop it. And that's the
so
thing about it.
to sum up, what can we do?
Well,
We can support lawsuits. People are
mhm,
doing that. There's
mhm,
all kind of lawsuits.
mhm,
We have we will find out whether the Supreme Court will have the integrity and gumption. I mean, they're all, 6 of the 9 justices are paid for by the Leonard Leo right wing network. So
mhm,
it's a long shot that they're going to rein in Trump. Then, if they do seek to rein in Trump with a ruling, is he going to obey it? And then what's going to happen?
mhm,
Okay. So, but lawsuits are definitely a thing.
mhm,
And we may be called upon to boycott. We may be called upon to strike.
mhm,
We're called upon to go out into the street. But
mhm,
the other thing you got to do is bird dog your Congress critters.
mhm.
Okay. Use this tool that I'm providing, call them up, give them a message, and make it clear to them that you don't think they're fighting hard enough to protect your economic and personal security. And they're agreeing passively, in some cases, to have more and more of the national product ripped off and given to a handful of billionaires, some of whom are sons of apartheid. So it's really on us. We're the only ones who can save us, and let's get at it.
I have one last thing before we go. What do you think about the fact that there's been a market silence with our local and statewide officials? What is
You,
their
you
part
know,
that they play in this fight? Because
I, I haven't pursued this the way I want to, but I will get on it. So, Abrego Garcia
mhm,
was held at the Baltimore Detention Center.
mm,
I mean, I found that out about a week ago.
Baltimore City or Baltimore County?
Baltimore City.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, why are we cooperating with that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was a bill in the legislature to say that, a certain level of cooperation with immigration laws is indeed required, but you don't have to go beyond and sign cooperation agreements where you use your local law enforcement resources to relieve the immigration people of their burden,
That's right.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
that bill didn't move, and the governor didn't want it to move, and Bill Ferguson, our Senate president, didn't let it move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yes, we have some problems here where we're cowing before Donald Trump and his horde of
Why do you think that happened? I see why that happened.
uh
You ever heard of the Key Bridge?
uh
You want that money?
well, I hear what you're saying,
I'm
and I
just
think,
saying, I'm just
yeah,
saying that's probably why it did.
that's a very good point, Sarahia. And I
Mhm.
think
I'm just
the
talking strategy. You see, that's why I
yeah.
always take the motion. I was like, that's a strategy right there. That's that 9 times out of 10, that's probably why that happened.
And the issue is, are we going to um the guy's the president of the United States, and the federal budget is, whatever it is, $6 or $8 trillion a year. And are we going to allow him to buy everything he wants to buy? He bought Eric Adams, the mayor of New York. And not only did he buy the guy, he's still got the guy on parole because when he made an agreement to drop federal charges, they did it in a way that they can bring back the federal
Oh,
charges.
he's going to jail. He's
So
going to
now
jail.
Eric Adams has to do everything they say, or they bring the charges back.
Oh, he's definitely going to go to jail.
Uh-huh.
Because he's definitely going to go to jail because he's about to lose. Andrew Cuomo's going to win that race.
Oh well, I tell you, Andrew Cuomo is no picnic either.
Well, he's not a picnic, but I will say he's not what everybody made him out to be. A lot of that was a hit job. I'm just going to tell you what I'm guessing. A lot of what that was they just wasn't liked. Sometimes when you're not liked doesn't mean whatever,
Yeah, well,
but
listen, Andrew
it is what it
Cuomo
is.
supported uh, a group of Democrats in the state legislature, in the state Senate, that caucused with the Republicans to
Of
keep
course.
to keep progressive things from happening.
Of course, because that's who he was. He was
Yes.
not his dad. I mean, he definitely was a hard liner. I'm not saying I support it. I'm just saying, but he's going to win. That I do know.
Well, I hope he doesn't. But anyway, the point is here. Uh,
Well, it's either him or Eric Adams, and nobody likes Eric Adams in New York. So I
uh,
can tell you right now.
he got elected mayor, though, didn't he?
Well, he got elected through a bad system. The ranked choice voting system is bad. It's not a good system.
All right. Well, I will. That's another show.
It is. No, I mean, I'll just tell you briefly
Mm.
strategically why it's bad. It's bad because people want more access for candidates to have resources, not necessarily um for their votes to fall to more candidates that they don't vote for. And that's what ranked choice voting does. All the people who didn't vote for Eric Adams ended up voting for Eric Adams, even though they didn't vote for him because of the ranking.
All right.
And,
Well,
and that's how he ended up winning.
we
And
don't agree on this, but that's
yeah,
okay.
that's okay. But ranked choice voting, I'm just telling you, it's a bad system. It's not a good outcome. You don't want that. I'm just telling you, it's not a good system.
Don't listen to her, folks.
Yeah, listen to me. Trust me. Strategically, just because progressives come up with these things doesn't mean it's just not good. What you want is resources. You want resources for
They
candidates
use
so
it
they can
to
compete. So they
pick
can
the
compete.
NBA Defensive Player of the Year. They use ranked choice.
That's fine too. And that's still a garbage system. It's still a garbage system.
Um,
That's the NBA. The NBA is all a bunch of rich people. Come on now.
Folks, now you got to contact your Congress people, and Sarahia is going to give you the
I am
information,
going to give
tell
you
you
the
how to
info.
do it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Charlie. We've had a spirited talk, and what I'm going to tell you,
Right.
we're going to divide this talk up in two sections because it has been a long talk. Because I really think all of what he said has been really great, awesome. I really love his fight. I love the fact that he's so engaged, and I love a lot of what he believes in. I love the fact that he's a really great advocate for the area, and the fact that everything he has said, honestly, anyone from any state in America can utilize and organize and get together and literally turn it into people power. And the reality is, just like Charlie said, we the people have to decide, as Ben Franklin said, are we going to keep this republic? And so this is my closing statement. America, the America that you thought it was never was. And so we have to decide, do we want to rebuild her? And so we have to decide what we want to rebuild her in. Do we want to retire our Constitution and rebuild a new one, which is actually legitimate? And even rebuilding a new Constitution doesn't mean we have to get rid of everything. See, sometimes people think retiring a Constitution means, oh my God, we're throwing out everything. No, that doesn't mean that. It means that we're going to update it and have a new commission, almost like the original, and bring the greatest minds and legislative minds together so we can get out of this logjam. Because really the reality is, the Constitution is meant to be amended on a regular basis. For over a century, we have not. And part of the reason why we've gotten to this logjam. And so perhaps maybe what we do need is to retire the current Constitution, have a constitutional convention, and literally rebuild into a new,
or at least
more perfect union.
Or at least do certain critical amendments.
Yes.
Like,
Especially when we talk about
corporations do not have constitutional rights.
correct.
Everyone has the right to vote.
Voting rights,
And
the Supreme Court
campaign money
reform.
can be regulated. We need that. We got to get rid of this immunity decision that the Supreme Court pulled out of its
Yeah. But we
dictionary.
also had to really reform the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court doesn't have ethics. The Supreme Court is the wrong proportion.
Right.
The
Absolutely.
Supreme Court may even need to be dealt with in terms of not appointment. I don't think they should be appointed. I think I don't know how, and again, I'm just riffing. I don't know how they should be addressed. I don't think they should be addressed by executive appointment. I think that power has outlived its day. And so
Maybe the College of Cardinals could pick them.
I mean,
they could have him practice picking the Pope.
I mean, it could be, but I mean, it could be regional. It could be regional. And I think maybe there could be a region of electors or policy electors. And when I say policy electors, maybe policy experts that come together and, assess the abilities. But I mean, I'm just riffing again. But we need to come up with a better way to address this and make it more fair and actually representative of the electorate. Obviously, in some system where we can constantly reassess, because we have to get out of this logjam of partisanship. Because the reality is, we're always going to have people that are going to come in and manipulate us, but we have to kind of find a way to get out of it. And so those are some of my suggestions. Charlie's had a great amount of suggestions, and he's also set out with a firm plan of advocacy. It's a very simple plan, but an effective plan that anyone can do. And just to let you know, there are still, I think, almost 46 areas in America in 2025 that there are elections. Far too often, we are looking past the year we're in to look to 2026. If you really want to grab power, start in 2025. We've got to stop looking past that. Also, in the next 2 weeks, we have to make sure down in Charlotte, try to, if you can, cure some of those ballots, because there's a state Supreme Court position that the GOP is trying to steal from a Democratic Supreme Court winner. And
Yeah.
basically, I'll say this briefly, she won the seat, but what they're trying to do, the guy will not give up, even though he lost. They're trying to make the electors come in to prove that they voted. Some from out of the country, I think they're veterans, and some of them are out of Charlotte. And we know in Charlotte they look
They're
like
trying to
me.
take away veterans' votes.
Yeah,
Not veterans, active service members.
active service. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so, if you can help cure those ballots by phone banking the people to let them know, because maybe some of them haven't seen the news or didn't know that perhaps they're on that list. Because literally it's less than 1,000 votes. And so they're saying it's 5,000 people. And I know that Black Voters Matter are down there, but every voice, every person engaging in that will help, because people don't understand that state, North Carolina, will have a major impact on the 2028 election, because redistricting will happen before then in North Carolina. So I'm signing off on that one. I think so. That's the reason why these 2025 elections are so important. And so thank you. This has been the BNP Report. Goodbye.
All right.